The following is an encore presentation of stories from the Dooralong Transformation Centre. And you're listening to 94.9 Rima Central Coast, where the time is 10 past 10. And in the studio with me at the moment, we've got Amy from the Dooralong Transformation Centre. So, a very chilly good morning to you, Amy.
Good morning.
How are the mornings at Dooralong? I'm imagining they're freezing cold.
Yeah, I've heard they get a lot more frosty in the months to come.
Is that right?
Yes.
So, are you a cold weather person or a hot weather person?
More of a summer person.
Yeah, so it's a bit of an ordeal, the cold winter mornings. Nobody in the pool, I wouldn't think, at this time of the year.
No.
Barren. Indoors, yeah. How long have you been at Dooralong then?
5 months now.
And how would you describe your progress to date?
It's been slow. It's as I think it should be in recovery. It's one day at a time. So
yeah,
it's a journey, I guess, of each day getting through the tasks you need to. And I try and take it that way. It's been necessary for me to take it that way. There's a lot to do in our days, but it's a slow, steady journey for me.
And like lots of things in life, it takes hard work. Sometimes the worthwhile things in life sometimes don't come easy, and you have to invest a lot of time and effort in them. Yeah,
definitely.
And I imagine rehab is one of those areas where you've got to work at it each and every day.
Yeah, it's you have some really, really, really difficult days.
Yeah, sure.
Some that you don't think you can get through. And sometimes there's a lot of those days altogether, and then slowly those days get less and less, and you have some wonderful days, and I think that's
But it's a bit of a roller coaster, lots of highs, lots of lows as well.
Yeah.
I don't think our listeners thought that rehab was going to be easy, so hopefully nobody's surprised by what you say, that it's tough, it's hard work. But
there's a lot of joy too, there's a lot of laughter.
Yeah, there has to be, doesn't there?
Yeah.
As a sort of release mechanism. For you, it started with alcohol, didn't it?
Yeah.
When you were in your teen years, I think you were telling me.
Yeah.
So teenage years, 14, 15, that's the years of experimentation. But for you, it was more than that, wasn't it? You told me earlier that when you drank until all the alcohol was gone. Yeah. Why was that?
I just wasn't able to stop, I guess. I don't think I had an awareness that... I think I always felt like I wasn't drunk yet. Like I didn't... It was never enough. I would drink, and I would drink till I passed out, or the alcohol ran out, or I was kicked out. It was always chasing this elusive
you were searching
freedom.
For something.
And I could never. It gave me freedom for myself, and it made me feel part of. But there was never a point where that was enough.
You always wanted more.
I just simply wasn't able to stop. I said it. I speak to friends sometimes who, will say, I've had enough now. I'm feeling...
I'm going home, I've had enough.
I've had enough, and it's such a... I'm like, what do you mean? You've had enough? Like, there's... what does that feel like? That concept's so bizarre to me, because there's never enough, and it's just... I think... my sister once said to me, there's a point at which you change, and I think I remember saying once, I think when I'm drunk, I think I'm tipsy, and at that point, whenever that shift happens, which is probably when I start to black out, I start drinking a lot more heavily, and it's frightening.
It is. It is scary, isn't it? Is there a history of alcohol abuse in your family?
Yeah. My father was extremely alcoholic, and it's certainly down the genetic line. It's rife throughout that side of my family, and addiction.
So it would have been a difficult upbringing for any teenager if you've got one of your parents who's alcoholic.
Yeah, definitely, and I guess seeing that, and seeing addiction in the family growing up was confusing. And
in what way was it confusing?
I guess that I remember being little and sort of just wanting it to stop, there was violence in the home, there was a lot of silence, I remember sort of waiting for that bottle to go onto the fridge on the Thursday night, and and the inevitable arguments and fights that would happen on the weekend as the drinking would start. And
so it was a cycle, it repeated itself, and you could spot the signs.
Yeah, and I guess that, there was never a way of managing. I never saw that my parents sort of managed their issues in a way that was functional, I guess. And, and I used to stand there and just, be so anxious. And, I think I related earlier that I never sort of felt right inside. I never knew how to fix that feeling inside myself of such discomfort. And I'd always either try and fix what was happening out there, or by bringing things from the outside in, whether that was eating or relationships with friends and people pleasing, or eventually alcohol and drugs. It was I never learnt how to soothe from the inside. I didn't know how to, and I think I was just perpetually anxious. I never felt right.
And you were treating that anxiety with your own sort of self-medication and with the alcohol.
Yeah, I guess it just gave me an out. Like I was able to disappear.
Yeah. An escape.
Yeah.
Block it out.
Yeah.
And get a few hours when it didn't seem quite so bad.
Yeah, I don't know that it was exactly that. It was quite joyful. I think, I used to be quite joyful. It was something I looked forward to. It allowed me to connect with people. It gave me what I thought was connection for a long time. And, but I guess inevitably it creates disconnection. And, on the day, in the early years, before the disease had progressed, it gave me connection with people. It made me feel a part of. But
gave you confidence. We talk about it giving you Dutch courage. It enabled you to sort of exist in a sort of social situation that you might have found really awkward otherwise.
But it doesn't last so, and certainly the anxiety that comes with waking up and thinking, what happened, how did I get here, sometimes hours and hours and hours of the night that I don't know what's happened.
It's frightening, isn't it?
And the anger that people have, waking up with my ex-husband really angry at me and not, tiptoeing around wondering what I'd done.
You talked just a second or two ago about the disease progressing. What did it look like as that disease progressed? My teenage years are really foggy to me. I don't remember a lot, and I'd say my drinking and drug use has a lot to do with that. I started smoking pot at probably 16. There was a lot of drinking during those years, I guess, definitely weekly. By the time I was 18, I was using amphetamines and ecstasy weekly, and that went on for a couple of years, but I couldn't really, that didn't really work for me. I have mental health issues, and but the drinking got to the point, I guess I got married at about 26, but I was with my partner from 19 for 11 years, and I think that starved off the progression for a while. Yes.
But certainly the secrecy and the manipulation to sort of allow myself to drink how I wanted to, and a lot of it was binge drinking. And alcoholics often, people will say, "Oh, that's not alcoholism," and the writing yourself off. Maybe when I was a teenager, I might have had, a few bottles of wine, and to the point that, it being in my mid-20s, I would have had a bottle of vodka and, 3 or 4 bottles of wine, and my tolerance to be able to drink a lot was extreme alcohol poisoning, and I think it's a lot of the incidental accidents around that happen with the drinking, falling into fires, waking up with cuts and bruises and not knowing how they happened, and also there's
a guilt and shame as well, which sort of feeds into this whole sort of situation.
Yeah, and definitely, and I think it's that thing of, that just living in perpetual anxiety, and I didn't know I was. I really didn't know how anxious I was constantly, and because of that I suffered so much ill health all the time. I think I was anxious and depressed for so many years, and I had no idea. I was just constantly on a treadmill, running, hiding what was really happening for me, and then drinking it away every weekend, and then hiding and getting through the week, and always trying to make sure I didn't fail at life. And I constantly felt like a failure who didn't fit in, who was, everyone would find out, was worthless and hopeless, and everyone would leave me. And abandonment, I guess, is a huge problem for me too. And
the picture you paint is a desperate picture, isn't it, of somebody really desperately sad.
Yeah.
And lonely, I would think. It's a very lonely place. I know you were married and you had family around you, but within yourself it must have been a very sort of lonely place to be.
Yeah, it was. I guess I clung on to my marriage for a long time. That didn't work, probably from the start, and that allowed me to pretend like I wasn't lonely. And, when that ended, I really slid into major addiction, and that landed me in rehab about a year and a half later. And I guess that felt really inevitable.
Yeah, and you were telling me off air before we sort of turned the microphones on. Yeah, you were telling me that you've been to rehab before, that Dooralong, this present stay at Dooralong, isn't your first attempt at getting clean.
No. I first went into rehab in August 2016, 3 years ago nearly. This is my 8th admission into rehab. Not all of those were due to relapse. I've done a couple of relapse prevention admissions. I've only really had, last year I relapsed in March, and that was a major relapse. It was an extremely dangerous, frightening relapse. Physically dangerous for your health? It was psychologically, it built up for a long time, and it resulted in frightening malnutrition, psychosis, overdoses. I was sleeping on the streets. I have borderline, and I self-harmed through cutting, so I was in and out of hospital for that for a long time. I had post-operative infection and nearly lost my hand, and by the end of it, I'd had a big overdose, and I was in hospital, and I was put in detox, and the choice to go to Dooralong came from the psychiatrist I was in another rehab before Dooralong for nearly 3 months, and they were looking at involuntary treatment or a long-term facility.
Yes.
So
that's why somebody suggested Dooralong.
Yeah.
You desperately needed help. If you'd have carried on, do you ever think what would have happened? You could be dead.
That's what they were telling me. But I didn't care anymore at that point. I was sort of...
No hope in your life of anything?
The drugs and alcohol had just reduced me to an animal almost. I was functioning... I'd lost my humanity, I guess. I was really detached from the world. I'd sort of lost my care, and because I'd been to rehabs, particularly that rehab in Sydney, a few times, a lot of the people there really cared about me, and they were trying to tell me, you're going to die if you keep going, and I didn't really, on the surface I just was like, just leave me alone, but something in me wanted to, I guess, and has always continued to sort of pull me up. And
yes, you're a battler, aren't you? You've been to rehabs, as you say, 7 or 8 times. You're certainly not a quitter, are you?
No, and I think, despite, I guess, some difficult stuff in childhood, and I've still got a lovely family and some good two lovely sisters and niece and nephew, and I've got a dog called George.
Oh, excellent. We'll talk about George later on, maybe.
I'm I think there's a lot of wonderful things still left in this world, and something inside me reminds me that there's a big life to live, Good. And I've got some beautiful people going out to bat for me.
Let's leave it there, Amy, with a reminder to our listeners that if anything that Amy has talked about has sort of triggered issues for you or just made you feel uneasy, then don't forget you can always phone Lifeline on 13 11 14, and they'll be very, very happy to take your call 24/7, 13 11 14. But what we're going to do is we're going to have a break for some music. Then Amy and I are going to have a cup of tea and a cup of coffee, and then we'll be back at 10:30 and 32 seconds. We're talking to Amy this morning from the Dooralong Transformation Centre. Amy had a really troubled childhood, alcohol abuse within the family, violence, abuse, mental health issues, drinking to get drunk, and then it turned to drugs as well. You've been to many rehabs, but it was about 5 or 6 months ago that you decided to go to Dooralong.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. And this is your first time at Dooralong?
Yeah.
Yeah. So is this different than the other? I'm sure each rehab place that you go to is different, but is there any big way in which Dooralong is different to some of the others that you've been to?
I guess the other rehabs I've been to were private facilities. They're short term. They're only a few weeks. And not that that's a bad thing. You go into those places, they detox you, they give you some tools and some intensive group therapy, and they have their place.
Yes.
But for me, I got to a point where I didn't feel safe anymore, and I was being told I needed somewhere like long-term at the private facilities, and Dooralong gives you, and I think even beyond other long-terms, because I've had experience with other people who've been to other places. It's the most wonderful, beautiful place. Its program is incredible. It covers everything from the general sort of recovery type content, in terms of the impact of drugs and alcohol,
which you would get probably to other centres as well.
But it's really robust. I guess it covers the also the psycho the psychology side of recovery, and you look at you as a whole person. It's a really holistic program. We do work therapy. And we get to work on the property and be part of a community that that really allows you to connect. And they say, it's said that the opposite to addiction is connection, and Dooralong gives you a chance to be part of that, to be part of a really integrated community where you have a responsibility to contribute, to look after your peers, and for me, I came in and I didn't, I just wanted to be left alone. I just wanted to sort of disappear into my little hole, and that responsibility has kind of just lifted me and pulled me along. We get together on chapel night on Wednesdays, and for me, that just. The first couple of times that was a bit full on, and I didn't know what to expect with that. But now it just brings joy, and it's that notion of community. Like, it's a value I've always held dear, but addiction took that from me, and Dooralong's just brought that back.
That connection to other people and community.
And it's the staff there too. They genuinely care, and that sometimes that's just having a fun conversation, or being a bit silly, or chatting about a book, or and sometimes it's they just notice you're not doing so well, and and you haven't noticed yourself, and I was profoundly mentally unwell when I got there, and I'd self-harmed, and I was just astounded by the fact that all the staff became aware of that. They were all checking on me all the time, and it's very rare for a facility being dual diagnosis to be able to cope with that, and I was just cared for in a way that I really didn't expect from a facility that doesn't have is funded, self-funded in so many ways, and just the Salvation Army is incredible, and they've saved my life, and
we get it time and time again on Wednesday mornings, the guys and the girls, they come in here and they talk about this sense of a very strong community, and we've witnessed it ourselves when people from Rima have been to your chapel nights, and it's been a graduation night, and the pleasure everybody gets when somebody graduates, it's not put on, it's not contrived, they are genuinely pleased that somebody's graduated, and even sat around at the meal beforehand, there is such a strong feeling of community there.
It's wonderful.
We talk about the place itself, Dooralong, set out there in the bush, and you're a girl from Sydney. Is the physical environment itself set out in the bush with the wildlife in the bush, is that in itself therapeutic?
It's so peaceful. I quite like the city. I like the busyness of it, and just to wake up to there was a duck in my tree this morning, about 10 metres up. I was like, what are you doing up there? But it's I get to work in the gardens, and we've got a beautiful rose garden that represents a lot of those who've been lost to addiction since they've left, and it's a real privilege to be part of that. And but I get to walk out in the morning and see the mist over the land, and that connection to nature, that connects me to my higher power, and for me, that's been a huge part of it for me, is being able to be connected to nature, to space, and I feel like that space has given me space to feel free, to recover, I guess, to be able to escape for a little while and have some time to re-energise.
Because it's both the physical and the sort of mental, emotional side, but also it's a spiritual thing, and it all needs to recover and be refreshed, doesn't it?
And we call it a physical, mental and spiritual disease, and I think that's what Dooralong gives you. It addresses the spiritual healing, and
that's probably different than some other rehabs, because it is, of course, as you've said earlier, with reference to the chapel night, it's a Christian-based program. A Christian-based organisation.
It is, and I guess it doesn't, it allows you also to just explore a higher power of your understanding as well. And I was born to hippies in Nimbin, and I certainly didn't grow up in a Christian household. And I usually practice more of a Buddhist approach to life. But and as I said, my first few attendances at chapel, I sort of didn't know how to approach that. But
it would have been very strange, almost confronting in some ways.
Yeah, it was a little, but the message there, of being who I am, I took a notebook along and wrote notes on some of the sermons, just to try and understand what the message was. And but there's so much joy and community, and it's about being able to. A lot of recovery in itself is about being able to let go and trust, and that's certainly what it gives me. And
and they, salvos and hopefully all Christians, they live out their faith with the grace and acceptance and the sort of non-judgmental sort of attitude that hopefully they we know that they have towards all the people, all the guests at Dooralong. Do you go to any of the Salvos local churches?
Long Jetty. They're wonderful out there.
And is that another way in which you feel you are starting to be able to make connections with people?
I remember one Sunday I nearly missed out on going, and I burst into tears.
I want to go to church.
Again, like it just it's a wonderful community out there, and they're so giving and kind, and there's a diverse range of people there, and we all, up and singing and clapping our hands, and and it's always a different message, and it's always on, completely different topic, and being the Salvation Army, they're we always talk. They've always raising money for something amazing, or sending people overseas to do mission work, and it feels really wonderful to be part of something like that.
Yeah, and that phrase "church family" perhaps is beginning to make sense to you now, because you talked about the wonderful people there, and it does become like your second family.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. We're talking to Amy from the Dooralong Transformation Centre this morning. Amy was telling us about the time that she has spent at Dooralong. She's been there 5 months, and off air I asked Amy if I'd have been speaking to Amy, or the Amy of 5 months ago, would there have been a difference? And you were saying there would be a difference.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, there was so much damage done. Just even functionally speaking, I'm a lot better these days. I still sit there and struggle for words sometimes, and I'm a bit worried about that. But I mean, just mentally, I really got to a point where, coming back into this recovery, I didn't want to live anymore, but I wasn't ready to die yet, and so it was just feeling really sort of quite suicidal all the time, and just completely apathetic to life. And today, I actually want to live. I don't know what that looks like yet, but I do. I want to live today, and it's a really profound shift for me, because I don't know. That's maybe a first time. It's a really slow, gentle shift too, and it's a fragile thing. I feel like I'm carrying it in a bird's nest.
You don't want to damage it.
Yeah.
And so are you allowing yourself a little bit of hope for the future now that you haven't previously allowed yourself?
I don't know. I don't even know if I want to call it that. I just stay really. I'm trying to stay really present with
in
that.
The here and now.
Yeah, like today I want to live. Today I'm grateful. I'm grateful for today. I'm grateful to be here in this moment, and that's enough right now. And if tomorrow I'm feeling pain and sadness, then that's okay. And if I can have some awareness about that, if I can notice that and sit in it and try and sort of be with that and take the right action with that, then I'll be really grateful for that too. For me, normally if I'm in pain and sadness, I'll act out. I'll do the wrong thing. I'll get into, I'll ruin a relationship, or I'll eat 10 bags of chocolate, or if I wasn't in recovery, I'd take drugs and drink, and I was able to sit in an AA meeting the other night and cry, and I don't show that stuff usually, and I'm starting to try and just notice what's happening for me and try and take the right action around that, and
not overanalyze it.
No, just sort of be like, oh, that's what's happening, and
allow
that's
it
okay.
To be.
Yeah, and or put a boundary up and touch base with my caseworker or my psychologist, and just sort of be in what's happening right now. And it's a really hard thing for me to do, because usually I want to sit there and be resentful about people or things or places that have happened, or be stressing out about what's about to happen. And for me to sort of sit, that's my favourite thing to do, is sit there and dwell on things, or that's what an alcoholic addict does. So yeah, it's.
But it does sound as if there are one or two seeds of transformation taking place.
Yeah. I'm still a bit crazy, and
You've only been there 5 months, and you've been in addiction for a number of years, and you've been in some dark places, so it's going to take time, isn't it?
Yeah. We're all a bit quirky in recovery, and I think that's the best thing about it. We don't get here because we're all sane.
No. What do they have you doing out there? What's your job?
I get to work in the gardens, and but there's also a lot of opportunities to sort of put your hand up and work on other things, and contribute in other ways to some of the different events that go on. And we just recently had a reconciliation day, and we'll have NAIDOC week coming up, and so there's things like that you can get involved in as well. We work in the kitchens on weekends, and I'm a driver, so there's lots of little bits like that.
And tonight, of course, is chapel night. It's Wednesday. Beautiful roast meal.
Yes.
And a time
I'm a
of
vegetarian,
worship.
but
Are there many vegetarians at Dooralong? There'll be
There are
a few, aren't there?
Yeah, there's a few. Yeah.
So, what you have, nut roast?
Probably a half capsicum with some lentils.
Oh, so roast veggies are great. I love roast veggies. They're just a little bit burnt. I think it gives them a bit of a taste.
Well, I'm actually a waitress. I work through dinner tonight. We have barista made coffee. That's one of the courses they offer. We go down and do it. Some of us have been lucky enough to go and do a course in Sydney to become trained as baristas. So
you'll never be out of a job in Australia. You've got your barista qualification.
No, so here we run the coffee team tonight, and so and that's another fun thing I get to do, and it allows me to chat to a lot of people tonight. So I always look forward to chapel night. It's always a bit of fun.
It's a good stirring, spirit-filled night, isn't it? And lots of joy.
Yeah, get pepped up on caffeine and then sing a lot of songs of praise.
Yeah. Sounds good. Sounds very good.
That was an addict thing to say, wasn't it?
Pepped up.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, we'll edit that out. Nobody heard that bit. Look, it's been wonderful to talk to you, Amy. You've been very honest, and the things you've said have been really very powerful. And you've been there 5 months. You'll probably be there for a good many more months yet. It would be nice, perhaps, in a few months' time, they would let you come back and we can catch up on your progress. That would be absolutely super.
Lovely, that'd be great.
Okay, well, you enjoyed chapel night tonight.
I will.
And have a safe journey back.
Thank you.
You've been listening to an encore presentation of the Dooralong stories, which can be heard live every Wednesday at 10 a.m. and repeated 8 p.m. Sunday and 1 a.m. Wednesday, right here on 94.9 rima.cc.